What if your exit strategy was more important than your business strategy? For over 25 years, John Martinka has helped entrepreneurs not just build businesses, but exit them with clarity, confidence, and real financial reward. Known as the escape artist, John has guided hundreds of business owners through the most emotional and misunderstood chapter of entrepreneurship, getting out. He's not a flashy VC or a startup guru. He's the guy behind the scenes helping owners transition their life's work into lasting legacy. Whether that means selling to the right buyer, preparing the next generation, or buying a business the smart way. With three best selling books, decades of consulting, and a firm grasp on the psychology behind acquisitions and exits, John has built a reputation for asking the right questions long before most people realize they need the answers. But this conversation isn't just about the technicals of buying or selling a company, it's about identity, letting go, and what happens when the business you built no longer needs you. If you're a founder, an acquirer, or just someone who wants to own a business without starting one from scratch, John's perspective might just change how you think about the end and the beginning. And before we start the episode, a quick word from our sponsor, Deep Wealth and the Deep Wealth Mastery Program. Here's Sanjay, a graduate of Deep Wealth Mastery, and he says, the investment I made in the Deep Wealth Mastery Program, it's a rounding error compared to the value created today and the future value I'll receive. Or how about William, who says, and I love this, a company that's attractive to sell is also a great one to own. The Deep Wealth Mastery Program gives me the best of both worlds. Now, speaking of growth and adding value, check out what Leon says. He says that the Deep Wealth Mastery Program changed how and who we hire. We've now begun to hire talent today that we never would have hired if it weren't for the program. The talent we're hiring today is helping both increase our growth and profits and our future enterprise value. Man, I love that kind of feedback because it's that kind of feedback that's what gets me out of bed every day. Deep Wealth Mastery System, it's the only system based on a nine-figure deal. That was my deal. And as you know, I said no to a seven-figure offer, created a system that we now call Deep Wealth Mastery. And that's what helped myself and my business partners welcome from a different buyer, a different offer, a nine-figure deal. So if you're interested in growing your profits, preparing for a future liquidity event, whether that's 2 years away or 22 years away, and if you want to optimize your post-exit life, Deep Wealth Mastery is for you. Please email success@deepwealth.com. Again, that's success, SUCCESS, at deepwealth.com. We'll send you all the information about Deep Wealth Mastery, otherwise known as the Scale for Ultimate Sales System. That's where you want to be. You want to be with other successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders just like you who are looking to create market disruptions. Whether you're a startup, whether you've been in business for 3 or 4 decades, whether you're manufacturing, whether you're high tech, SaaS, low tech, whatever the case may be, come in and network with other business owners, with other businesses just like you, because they all want to lock in their financial freedom and enjoy both success and fulfillment. Again, that's a 90-day Deep Wealth Mastery Program. It has your name on it. All you need to do is take the next step. Please send an email to success@deepwealth.com. Welcome to another episode of the Deep Wealth Podcast. For all you business owners, founders, entrepreneurs out there, as you're looking at the next chapter, perhaps you're going to exit. Maybe you're raising some capital, but you're looking at your exit. What do I do? Where do I begin? We have a very special guest today in the House of Deep Wealth. John, an absolute pleasure to have you with us. You're a fellow podcaster and author. You're an M&A advisor. I just love all those check boxes that I'm ticking as we're calling this out. But John, let me ask you this. There is always a story behind the story. So what's your story? What got you from where you were to where you are today?
I would say it's the serendipity is a big word in that for what I do now, it came about through a person I befriended when we were back-to-back presidents of a local Rotary club and got the line something like, I've always thought you'd be good in this business. And it was the right time, right place. I do not have a big corporation background. I think in my career, 6 months is all I worked for a huge corporation. Most of it was small business. My first real job out of college was I grew up in Wisconsin, was with the major local concert promoter. So I spent a bunch of years in my 20s having a lot of fun. You used the word fun when we were talking before. You have to have fun. And when you're in your 20s and you're working in the entertainment concert business, it was fun. But that wasn't going to last because as maybe some people listening to this can identify, The owner was only 5 or 6 years older than me, and I had reached the number two position, and we were in a mid-market. And so something had changed, and my wife and I, we moved from Wisconsin to Seattle. There were a couple kids in tow, and then it came to that serendipity point, and it was the right time, right place, which, in business, just talking to someone yesterday, Jeff, that a business owner, and we were talking about how when he started his business and when he also took it to the next level by making a strategic shift, you can always point to one or two things and say, boy, if those hadn't have happened, so this was right time, right place. And you can always think, I wouldn't have got that job or that client or whatever it is, where would I be? But they put me over the top, the old tipping point. And it's been a fun ride.
It's so interesting. John, as you're talking about this, you're taking me back. Actually, just before I got into business, I was wrapping up my MBA program. And one of my mentors, actually one of my professors as well, became my mentor. He said, Jeffrey, very successful guy, by the way. He said, Jeffrey, given the choice, I always want to be both lucky and smart. But if you force me to choose one, I'd always be lucky. And it's interesting. You have all those sayings out there: the harder I work, the luckier I get, and everything else. But John, you talked about serendipity, and let's talk about that for just a moment. What are your thoughts on the serendipity and what's going on out there? I mean, so many people have different takes on it. I have my own, and I'll intermingle that. But where are you on luck or serendipity, especially as an entrepreneur, and we're doing all kinds of different and unique things out there and putting ourselves out to the world and taking our chances?
When we talk about being in the right place at the right time and luck, sometimes you can't control that luck, but you have to have an attitude that good things are going to happen. I tell clients all the time, if you do the things you're supposed to do, good things will happen. And luck is part of that. It's interesting you mentioned that. I was just reading an article yesterday about how Jeff Bezos would always, in interviews, would ask people, do you think you're lucky? He felt people had to feel they had luck on their side. They could make things happen.
Yeah. And I believe it was Woody Allen. You can correct me if I'm off base. 90% of success is just showing up. And I think for me that the takeaway is we're not going to get it right. We're going to make so-called mistakes, really opportunities in disguise. But if we're in market, if we're creating, if we're putting ourselves out there, getting the feedback, and we're constantly, I'll use an overword, P word, pivoting from a few years back. If we're constantly pivoting because we're out there, because we're not dreaming, we're doing, that's when the opportunities come. That's when we're ready. That's where we're positioning ourselves to be at the right time should that opportunity come along. Thoughts about that?
I think you're absolutely right. Many, many years ago, at the time, a much more experienced business person than I said, told me, he said, I'm good at making decisions. Now, if I get half the decisions right, I'm doing wonderful. But I make decisions and I don't stew over things.
Yeah, absolutely. Being decisive, going out there. Oh, okay, made a mistake here. Let's do a course correct, but we're going to keep on going out there. Now, speaking of course corrections, John, given your experience, where you've been, what you've done, very high level, and with the question I'm going to ask, I would completely agree with you. If you said, Jeffrey, everyone's journey is unique. No two people are the same. And when it comes to businesses, it's the same thing. And I hear you on that. Very high level, though. And maybe it's a Pareto's Law, the 80-20 principle. Are there certain patterns that you're seeing of why, generally speaking, entrepreneurs wait far too long to plan their exit? And oftentimes it's a ready, fire, aim approach.
One of the key factors is there are a lot of business owners who they're very proud of what they've done and what they have. And before I get to my main thought, I'll just say I found over the years that the people with a lot of what I call micro businesses,
Mhm.
maybe doing $500,000 a year in sales, have
Yeah.
more pride than people that are doing 25 million. They think what they have done is just phenomenal, which is great. It's a great attitude. But that attitude that they have is that my business is the best thing since, and you could, whatever cliche, sliced bread, cold beer, is like, oh, of course, whenever I want to sell, people are going to come rushing with those high offers. And they don't realize that there are a lot of other good businesses out there. And you have to find the right buyer, not just someone who says, I can give you the money.
Absolutely. In fact, in our 9 step roadmap, step 3, future buyer, you're exactly spot on as one would expect. If I had 3 offers and top level, they're all pretty much the same, similar numbers and everything else. The buyer, their culture, what they're bringing to the table, they can be worlds apart and completely different, and couldn't agree with you more. And we're going to talk about that. And by the way, Deep Wealth Nation, when you go to the show notes, I want you to click on the link for John's books. He has a number of books. The most recent one, Exit with Style, Grace, and More Money. Hey, who wouldn't want that? Creating a large exit for your small business. Click on that, buy it, go through it. You'll be far better off coming out of it than when you went into it. But I want to ask you that because you're spot on with that. My experience as well. So, John, when we're waiting too long because we are the business is us and we can't get out of that. Oh, I just can't imagine my life if I didn't have the business. How do we begin to decouple ourselves from the business, realizing everybody has an exit at one point or another, and we've got to be prepared. And the sooner we can start doing that, likely the better enterprise value we're going to have, the more success we're going to have, and the better off the business is going to be. How do we start doing that, though, psychologically?
I'll get to that. I want to tell a quick story, though, because it's not just the small business. About a year ago, I went to an ACG meeting, and it was a little discussion, and the main panelist was a partner in a business that sold for $70 million. That's a pretty sizable business, $70 million. And he said when they were going through the process, he and his partner realized they were way too important to the day-to-day operations. So it's not just the small business where the owner is the business. They liked what they were doing, but they had created, in this case, I would say probably a minor owner dependency. They had enough of a staff and team, but it really comes down to let your management team take over things, delegate. It's tough to delegate in that position. I've had my daughter working with me,
Mm-hmm.
and we've recently added a couple other people to the team,
Mm-hmm.
but especially with her, it's please do this, go do it. And if you don't do it quite the way I would have done it, or you do it at the 70% level, nothing bad is going to happen.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, before someone goes through our mastery program, Deep Wealth Mastery, or they're coming into the community, one of the questions that we ask them, please only answer with yes or no. No or Oz, or, well, let me tell you this. Does the business run without you? Even if you have a management team, a leadership team, does the business run without you? And John, what's interesting, more times than not, even with a management team, the answer is no. Because when you speak to the management team, yeah, we're on paper the leadership team, but all the decisions still have to go through the business owner, the founder. And as entrepreneurs, to your point, we're not realizing we're giving ourselves the golden handcuffs. And I couldn't be more with you where you're saying, hey, even if someone does it 70, 80% as good as us, that's all that they're doing. They're working on it all the time. It allows us to scale, to grow. And so let me ask you this, and I suppose we can flip the question on the head, and maybe we'll do that. When you look at deals where it just blew up, it didn't work out, or maybe even you said, hey, thanks for coming to us to take it to market, but no, thank you. We're going to take a pass. Maybe here's someone else who could help you with it. What would be some of the common factors that would have that kind of negative result, if we can call it that, be occurring? Again, are there some common themes or trends that you're seeing that you'd advise us against?
I'll divide that into two categories. First would be the ones where someone comes to us and we pass on representing them, and often it would be size too
Mm-hmm.
small.
Mm-hmm.
It could be too large, but usually it would be too small. Expectations are way off. So if someone comes to us and says, look, my business has $1.5 million in profit, and I think I should sell it for $20 million, that's not going to happen. One, because if you're a SaaS business, it's going to be probably a lot more. But for a normal operating company, you're not going to get 20 million. You're not going to get a 13, 14 times multiple of earnings. So
Mm-hmm.
usually it would come down to that. And then as you learn about the business, you have to look out for all the traps that a buyer would be looking for. Is there customer concentration? Is there a key supplier that, yeah, well, as an example, last year we talked to a company, and a few years before they had one supplier for their main product. With all the supply chain disruption, that supplier said to them, you will buy X amount at Y price for this next year, or you don't get anything. It took them from seven figures of profit to, as I recall, over 500,000 loss for the year.
Wow. Wow. People, it's a great skeleton in the closet that you're mentioning. People think of buyer concentration. They often don't think of supplier
Yeah.
concentration and what that can mean to them.
Yeah. So when do deals blow up? We've been really fortunate to not have that many blow up because of the prep work. We just don't take anyone. I mean, there are mainly in, call it the Main Street business broker world, they'll take a lot of stuff that really isn't worth much. And it comes down to if you don't get good referrals, you have to settle for the best of the worst. So I can only think of a couple, other than something caused by COVID and the economy shutting down 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can only think of two. And one is everything looked really good for the last few years for their annual statements. CPA had done it as we started with them in February, I believe. And we're getting monthly statements that made no sense at all. Gross margin, one month would be negative, and next month it would be 80%. And the owner wasn't paying attention. Supply prices were going up and down. He wasn't changing his pricing. He wasn't tracking it. It just became, this is not the right time to sell it. You got to straighten things out. The only other one I can think of was seller remorse.
And
It
talk to
was,
us about that seller remorse because, again, it's out there. It's really the last thing on someone's mind. Usually it'll be, well, buyer's remorse, but seller's remorse. So, what would you want the Deep Wealth Nation to know even before they think about going to the next step? Okay, I'm going to have some kind of an exit. What should they be thinking about to not have that seller's remorse?
that comes into the planning and the discussion. And in this case, it was not money, but usually one of the first questions we will ask is, have you talked to a financial advisor about if you get X dollars for your business and then you pay taxes and costs, what will that mean for you as you pursue what I call your next great adventure in life? If that, and then what are you going to do? What is that next great adventure? And if it's retirement, does your spouse want you around 24/7?
Yeah, a big surprise for many a business owner who, in the next chapter, the post exit life, finds that out after the fact, not beforehand.
Yeah. And in this case, the case I'm talking about, it was really a family thing. This was in end of 2023. We brought them a 2022 valuation offer. And in, would probably remember in 2023, valuations started coming down. But the private equity firm was adamant that they're going to flip it in 5 years or so. And there were a couple, the donors each had a kid and other family members in the business, and it spooked them. It was like, what are these young men and women going to do if they flip the company? And
Mhm.
it's not your worry. It shouldn't be your worry because if they do a good job, they're going to be in high demand for the next buyer.
Exactly. And it's such a key point, John, that you're bringing up that as business owners, again, in our minds, it's, well, the world revolves around us. The business revolves around us. And even though this new owner comes in and they've written a big check, hopefully they've written a big check and it's now their baby, I've got to expect absolutely nothing and maybe even expect the worst that, hey, maybe day after sale, they're going to ask me to leave. Or maybe in a few years' time, to your point, they're going to find another buyer. They're going to get their profits out. And so I have to begin that detachment from the company, knowing that, hey, I had my run. Now I'm putting it hopefully into better hands.
And then also realize by size of deal, as you get into larger deals and you get more what I call professional buyers, which could be private equity of various sizes. Private equity is not just one size fits all. You have behemoths and you have those who say we won't buy anything with less than 5 million of EBITDA, and others that will go down a lot to one or two. You have family offices, you have strategic buyers, and you get into a larger deal that where they're attracted to it, they want management, which could include the owner, to stay on. They're buying people more than
Sure.
anything. And they are often, very often, not operators.
Yeah, more times than not, we've had many buyers and they've shared with us, Jeffrey, I'd rather pay more for a company knowing that I'm investing in a company and that I'm not buying a second full-time job. I want to know that there's going to be a management team or a leadership team, whether that's with the owner or without the owner, particularly if the owner rides off into the sunset the day after, that I still have a company left that is going to get me my return on investment. It's going to hit the target levels that we spoke about pre-closing.
And if you're selling a company that's going to be 8 figures, you should expect that you are going to stay on for a while. And there's a really high probability you're going to be asked to take what is called rollover equity. In
Mm-hmm.
other words, if you're going to sell 80% and you're going to roll 20% into the new venture, and you're expected to stay on for a while. And the goal is the second bite from the apple is as larger than the first. Your 20 becomes 80 or more.
And John, to your earlier point, which is so spot on, when you're taking equity, and maybe it's 20%, maybe it's less than that, but maybe it's double that, maybe it's more, all depending again on, to your point, who the buyer is, we better know who that buyer is. And for many business owners, it's a foreign concept for them that they should be doing as much due diligence on that future buyer or investor as is being done on them, because that could be their financial future that's being tied up into it, their legacy, the company's future if they make the wrong choice. Thoughts about that?
I think you hit the old nail on the head. It very seldom do sellers or the seller team do as much due diligence on the buyer as they should. Most of the time, you go back to your 80-20 rule, that 80%, everything is fine. They're good. They've got the background, etc., the money, they treat people well. And it doesn't matter if it's an individual buying a company or if it's a professional buyer. But there are occasions where it isn't what the seller thought it might be. That's where relationship comes in. When speaking, I've asked a lot of audiences, what do you think that the top three things are to make getting a deal done? And the answers are typical. Well, the price, the cash, etc. And it really isn't. The top three things are motivation. If you don't have a motivated seller and a motivated buyer, you're not going to have a deal. But especially on the seller side, then it's almost as important as relationship. When you talk about you're selling, I don't know what it was like when you're selling your 9-figure exit, but if you're talking about a 7 or 8-figure exit, the seller has to like and trust the buyer and feel comfortable. They're taking over their baby, their legacy. I hear all the time, I want someone who will take care of my people. And same thing on the buyer side. They got to feel that this is a trustworthy person because, as a seller, there are certain things, no matter how much due diligence you do, there are some things a seller can hide. Doesn't happen very often, but there are certain things. And a lot of it isn't, I say things that are hidden are not always on purpose. Sometimes it's just they're the unconscious competent. And I'll also say that a lot of times when things get uncovered post-sale, it's positive news more than negative news.
So interesting. And yeah, to your point, trust. Trust is the currency in M&A. It's not money, it's trust. As a buyer, do I trust the seller? And obviously, as a seller, do I trust the buyer? And if that's not there, either no deal or perhaps lower enterprise values, or if mistakes are made along the way. Jeffrey's been really straightforward. He's called it out before. And yeah, this happened. You know what, though? I trust him. I believe him. We're going to keep on proceeding and just move forward. And we'll just chalk this one up to, hey, it happens to everyone. And so trust is absolutely key. Now, speaking of this, I want to go to your book for just a moment. What I really appreciated about your book, because you don't hear this advice there often, and it's actually right in chapter 1. So this is Deep Wealth Nation, Exit with Style, Grace, More Money. What I loved is you talk about it being all personal. And most people out there, and they're wrong when they say this, no, Jeffrey, business is not personal. Business is business. Don't worry about it. It's just focus on that. Tell Deep Wealth Nation what you really want them to know of why it's all personal and why this is so important.
Because if you don't handle it personal, what's going on in the business isn't going to matter. And that's where I started out with, as a financial advisor, what are you going to do? Is your life in order? And then, first of all, it has to be the analogy of owner gets up one day and says, I want to sell in 3 years. I'm going to raise the dimmer switch on my business so it's bright and shiny and the financials are in order and I'm delegating. So when it comes time to sell, it's ready and buyers are going to love it. What happens is, again, Pareto's principle, 80% will flip one day, get up, flip the switch. I've had it. I want out.
Yeah, all too often, unfortunately. And as you're talking about that, actually, from mindset wise, what we should be expecting, how we should be viewing this. And really, it's not a zero sum game. It's not that, John, you win and I lose, or I win and you lose. Hey, we're all people and we all have our goals, our motivations. Let's figure out a way where it's not just a win, but it's a win 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 for all stakeholders.
Yeah. And you talked about the importance of the buyer in a relationship. I have seen many deals where there were multiple offers and the highest offer did not get the deal. In fact, I've heard it twice in the last week. A buyer told me someone else got it. They said it was a better fit. And I talked to a past client yesterday. He just did a bolt-on acquisition for his main business. And he said, I was the lowest of multiple offers and I got it. He was the right person.
But from the outside looking in, I'm sure people are saying, what? That's crazy. I'm just going to go for the highest number until you get into it. And at Deep Wealth, we call them the no-fly zones. So what absolutely must not be in the deal, otherwise I'm walking away from the table, or deal points. What absolutely has to be in the deal, Because if it's not there, I'm also going to be walking away. And to your point, and to preparation, which is why we say preparation is the gift that keeps on giving. Before I ever speak to someone like yourself, John, who's going to take me to market, coming to you and saying, okay, here are my deal points. Here are my no fly zones. It just brings a level of clarity that we can begin to weed out potential kinds of investors or buyers. It's just not going to be a fit. And yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it means we're signing on the dotted line where it's the best fit, but not necessarily top dollar.
That's right. And you have to know that. We have a client right now and two owners, and they say, very pointedly asked them, by the way, what if the buyer says to you, we're going to need you for 3 months and we'll be fine? Oh, that's okay. We're good. What
Mm-hmm.
if they ask you to stay for a year or a little more? We'll do it for them. We want the business to be successful, but we're not staying much more than a year and it's not going to be full time. So there's your line in the sand.
Yeah, having that clarity right into that. And I want to go back to the book for a moment because you had me chuckling. And I loved how you did this. So I'm going to chapter two for just a moment. And it's not just the numbers. You're saying, well, Jeffrey, it's not just the numbers. You finish saying that. And okay, I've bought into that. And then bam, chapter three, maybe it is the numbers. So again, for someone who hasn't been through this, you're speaking to Default Nation now. Let's talk about the numbers of why it's not just the numbers and why maybe it is just the numbers.
We've talked about some of the things why it's not the numbers. Your customers, do you have diversity or concentration? How are you pricing those customers? I have a future client. I've known him almost 20 years. His latest venture has been taking off. He has said, when I'm ready to sell, I'm working with you, but I'm having too much fun right now. He has a top client that is pretty like 20%, but to get that top client, he has very low margins. My goal is to get rid of that client because I won't lose that much in gross margin. So that comes into it, not just diversity. We talked about suppliers. What about the landlord? That is a key issue. If the landlord will not give an appropriate lease or an appropriate rate, or it could be the fair market rate, but the seller's been on a long lease and is way under market and it's expensive to move. You got your employees that comes into it. And these days, it's also, what about the IT? Is your IT up to snuff or are you subject to crashes and hacking and everything else? I missed one deal that fell apart. It was actually during COVID. And our client dealt with sensitive information,
Mm-hmm.
financial information on people. Their managed service provider got hacked, which tells you they weren't with a very good MSP. The MSPs getting hacked led to all of their clients' access. They got access to our client. It was a mess. There were lawsuits. It cost them $500,000 to fix it and was all the government fines.
Wow.
So all that comes into it's maybe not the numbers, but all of that is reflected in the numbers. And that's where having good financial systems, so you therefore have accurate financial statements, is really important. The tendency with too many owners is they blend the personal and business checkbook. And then they say, well, that's really not a business expense. Okay, so you've been cheating the IRS. And we're not talking about a lunch or a coffee or something like that. We're talking about I write off the car even though I just commute, things like that.
As you're talking about that, you're taking me to our step four due diligence and specifically EBITDA adjustments to your point. Whereas an entrepreneur, I have lifestyle investments. Earlier, John, you said maybe the landlord, you have a lease that's too low. Maybe I am the landlord. Maybe there's not even a lease. And I'm doing that because I want to show increased profits. I know I'm going to have an exit at one point and perhaps have some family members that I'm putting through the business and other kinds of things, but I don't do the work and I don't have that off the books for a good 2, 3 years before the liquidity event. So, yes, I'm paying higher taxes, but when I do show up to the liquidity event, it's not take me at my word. We don't really need all that inventory that we have on hand. That was just because I'm a worrier and I have two belts and two suspenders. Believe me, we don't really need that. The business is just fine without that. And most buyers are going to say, hey, I'm not buying that. I'm going to take this number as is. And hey, you ran the business for all these years with it. So off we go. Or hey, Jeffrey, your lease is way undervalued. I'm going to have to put a penalty on your enterprise value. I've got to go to market. I've got to now look to move and get a lease. Or hey, you don't have a president's payroll on here. I'm going to have to add that in. There goes enterprise value. Would love some of your thoughts on the EBITDA adjustments.
First one is you see a lot, especially in the market a little lower size than we like to work in, is they add back the owner's comp. And they
Hmm.
say, well, that's a discretionary item. They don't have to take a salary. And say they're an investor and they hire someone, they are going to have that salary. So why wouldn't they get it themselves? And then I have never, ever seen a bank or a legitimate business appraiser, and emphasize legitimate, not put in a fair market salary for the job of running the company. They always do.
Hmm.
So I've seen banks that will say to a buyer, especially an individual buyer, they want to see their personal statements and say, look, you say you can take a salary of 100,000, but your lifestyle says you need 175. We don't want you going into personal debt when you owe us money.
Yeah.
And those things come up in that smaller deals.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, even as you get to larger deals, there is that blending of the business and personal checkbook. We like clients where we don't have to do any of those add backs
Hmm.
and maybe adjust to market. Got one where the owners take big bonuses. Let's see. So they're both making 300 some $1,000 a year working part-time. We adjust it to market for what a one company president slash CEO would be making. That's a fair adjustment. Now it would flip the other side if they're an S corporation and they said, I'm taking a salary of 75, but it would cost me 200 to hire someone. You got to deduct 125
Hmm.
from
Yeah.
profit.
Yeah. And from the EBITDA adjustments, I want to go to something else that you said in the book that it's so easy to overlook. And buyers know this. And not all buyers, I'm painting with a very broad brush, or not all buyers are malevolent and they have these negative intentions, although some are. One tactic, though, that buyers will use is they'll put an offer in front of the business owners that has a lot of zeros, and we stop thinking logically. We get excited, we get caught up, our ego, our pride all gets caught up in there. But I love how you put it together. It's not a deal until the lawyers are done. And hopefully, John, we're taking a big assumption here because too often I'll hear entrepreneurs say, you know what, I'll just use my regular business lawyer. They've never done an M&A deal before, but they know the business. They're a lawyer. How different can it be? It's worlds apart. What do you want the Deep Wealth Nation to know of why an offer is not done until the lawyers say it's actually done? And I'm going to preface that by saying it's an M&A lawyer, the right kind of M&A lawyer who's got the experience and who's been in the trenches that knows what he or she is doing.
That's a really key point. It has to be a lawyer that is good at M&A deals, but for your business's size. So the lawyer who is used to doing deals in the six-figure range is not the right lawyer if you're selling for 15, $20 million. And the lawyer who at one of the big firms who's doing mid nine-figure deals, and some of them will work on one, maybe two deals a year because they're so complicated, is not for your 15, $20 million deal. I think back many years and a buyer's attorney was with a big firm. It wasn't that big a deal, sent over 50 some page purchase and sale agreement. And the seller's attorney said, we're not even going to read it. We'll draft one.
It's all contextual. You don't want to be the small fish in the big pond. You don't want to be that big fish in the small pond. You want that Goldilocks scenario where you're just right in the middle of that firm's sweet spot. So it's something that they're doing all the time. They're very familiar with it. To your point, a nine-figure deal, a high nine-figure deal is going to be a very different purchase and sale agreement than a seven-figure deal.
That's right. And that's part of my job is to guide the client to make sure they have the right attorney. We've had clients in 15, 20 states, so I don't know attorneys in all markets, but I know how to screen them. We know
Mhm.
how to screen them. But if it's something where, like in here in the Pacific Northwest, Seattle, Portland, et cetera, we know a lot of attorneys that are appropriate for different size deals.
And speaking of the advisory team, actually, step six in our nine-step roadmap, step six is the advisory team. John, what are your thoughts of how do I know I have the right advisor? It may be someone like yourself on the investment banking side. It might be an M&A lawyer. It could be perhaps a CFO, an M&A CFO. How do I know it's the right advisor? What would be some telltale signs?
Well, I think we go back to a buyer and seller and a relationship and the
Mhm.
trust and talking someone who talks competence and isn't pushy. If someone's pushing to do something, is that they're desperate for work? If you or I were to pick up the phone and start calling business owners and say, hey, we can help you grow, they're going to say, if they have to make cold calls, how good can they be? So a lot of it comes from the platinum standard of a referral,
Mhm.
or in my case, maybe a book that
Mhm.
adds to it. It's rarely one thing. It's I get a referral. I give them a copy of my book. They read it or even skim it. They say, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. I get along with him. We hit it off. He talks sense. I was meeting with someone yesterday and, I would say things and say, I don't know enough about your company, but I would guess that this might be the right answer, but we can confirm that. So I'm not just going out and saying, oh, look at this. This is the way it's going to be.
Sure. It's so true. Actually, in that kind of situation, John, one of the litmus tests that we suggest, it's a quick thought experiment. And so imagine with this particular advisor, you're on a plane ride, you're taking some kind of a business trip together, and you're on the tarmac, you're about to take off. Plane stops, pilot comes on over the PA system. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a mechanical issue. We're not able to get back to the gate, and it's just busy in the airport. We have to stay out here. They're flying a part in, but it's going to be 7, 8 hours that you're going to be on this plane. And you're looking at the person next to you. At the end of the 7, 8 hours, are you crawling out of your skin after the first 5 minutes? I can't take it. Get me out of here. Or did the time go by? It was a long time, but it wasn't so bad. I enjoyed speaking with that person because chemistry, it's absolutely everything. You've got to trust me. I need to trust you, but we need to have that chemistry. You could be the best advisor in your area in the world, but it may not be the best advisor for me just because we have a different chemistry of what's going on. Nothing personal on either side. It just is what it is. Thoughts about that?
Well, other than you're 100% right. And it's not just in something like this. My CPA retired a few years ago and the people who took over his practice, we just weren't clicking. And I stopped using them. It's not just in the buy sell world, it's in everything. If you're looking to buy a car and you go to 3 dealerships and you say, I really like that car, but I'm not doing business with that salesperson. You may go to another dealership for that brand. You will go to, you not maybe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So true. Chemistry is absolutely everything. And again, Deep Health Nation, go to the show notes, click on the link, pick up not just the recent book, Exit with Style, Grace, and More Money, but pick up all the books. There's so much wisdom, battle tested wisdom that's in there. John, let me ask you this before we go into wrap up mode. There are so many questions that I have not yet had a chance to ask. That said, is there one question you want to address that I haven't yet asked, or perhaps a topic or a theme that we haven't discussed that you want to get out to the Deep Health Nation?
Yeah, it's usually a question that I rarely get asked that doesn't have to do with the business. It's other parts of life. So I'm a big believer in when you give back, that you benefit as much as the people you are giving to. And on my normal Zoom background, I know we're doing audio only here. I have a background of a picture in the Caribbean and from the country of Antigua, because
Mm-hmm.
we go there every year working in the schools in a couple of weeks in February. We take local students in a tech program and through my Rotary Club and different grants that we get. We have over the years have donated over 10,000 computers, mostly laptops lately,
Mm-hmm.
and we've set up Wi-Fi networks in 5 dozen schools. And not only do our students get a trip of a lifetime and learn a different culture and stay with host families, but we benefit the students down there. That's a big part of life. And if
Yeah.
all you do is focus on your business, yourself, you're missing something.
Couldn't agree more. And it's so interesting, John. There is that saying that oftentimes the giver will get more back than the receiver. So if
Yeah.
I'm helping somebody, what that does for my mindset, for my mental health, it gives me a new magic moment, a different experience, as opposed to just staying in my lane, doing nothing else, growing the business and focusing on other things, as opposed to, hey, how do I pay it forward? How do I help other people in a way that's meaningful to them and in a way that's very meaningful to me?
You're right on that. For many years, I taught a class about 2 or 3 times a year at the local SBA office on growing an advisory business.
Mhm.
And I always would have my notebook open. And as I went through what I was teaching, I would write down, I better do this again. I better start on that again, and telling them to do it.
Yeah, it's so much. And obviously, when you're doing it, in this case, when you're teaching it, you have to know it. And it just brings a whole fresh perspective. And what's interesting, John, one of the things in our 9 step roadmap, it's actually step 10. We make it step 0. And that's the post exit life. So you're no longer with the business. You have hopefully a lot more zeros in the bank and also a lot more time. What are you doing to give back? What are you doing for your legacy that's going to make a positive difference that you now can in a way perhaps that you couldn't before because you have more resources, you have more time, you have more freedom to be able to make a difference. Thoughts about that?
I think that for most of us, unless we're in the Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos who built something absolutely incredible, people are going to remember you more for what you did for others than, oh, this person had a nice business and they sold it.
Yeah, so true. People remember Maya Angelou, I believe, who said, people remember how we made them feel, not what we said.
Yeah.
And so much truth to that, both in business and on the personal side of life. John, let me ask you this. We're going to be going into wrap up mode here. And it's a tradition here on the Deep Wealth podcast where it's really my privilege, my honor to ask the same question to every guest. So, from one fellow podcast host to another podcast host, here's the question for you. It's a really fun one. Let me set this up for you. When you think of the movie Back to the Future, you have that magical DeLorean car that will take you to any point in time. So, John, I want you to imagine now it's tomorrow morning. You look outside your window. Not only do you see the DeLorean car curbside, the door is open, is waiting for you to hop on in, which you do. And you're now going to go to any point in your life. John, as a young child, a teenager, whatever point in time it would be, what are you telling your younger self in terms of life lessons or life wisdom? Or, hey, John, do this, but don't do that. What would that sound like?
Yes, there's a lot of focal points there, but I'll go back since I really like what I'm doing now, and especially having brought my daughter in to work with me, is we go back when I started into this business, and my friend who got me into it has a much different style than I have, and I thought I had to emulate his style, and I would have gone back and said, never do that. That's not you.
Mhm.
Just do things your way and it'll work better. That would be the one thing. You have to be yourself.
It's such timely advice. Be yourself, particularly today with social media. Don't get me on my social media soapbox here of being told what to do and how to do it and trying to emulate everyone else. And we're seeing one picture out of 100,000 pictures for that one day and is perfectly curated. I love it. Be yourself. Take your gift to the world. On a side note, John, how is it working with your daughter? What's that like? So, to the entrepreneurial community, otherwise known as Deep Wealth Nation, if they're thinking about bringing a family member into the business, thoughts on that? Anything that you can share?
Be ready, be patient. When this came about, it was also sort of serendipity where she was working, got sold, and she said to me, I realized the person that came in, I was training to do my job. She was doing a job search, and I would subcontract out some basic work, not
Mhm.
what we do with clients, some back office stuff. And I said, why don't you come and work for me? You can do this. You've done some of it for me before, but it's more than that. You're going to have to get out in the community and do some biz dev. I made her talk to 8 or 10 people who, in the advisory world, who had to eat what they kill and get a feeling. What's it like to go out there and network and meet people and build a relationship? And then COVID hit, and of course, that set her back quite a bit on that part of it. But it's being patient and not just because it's a family member, don't expect too much or too little. You got to be able to hold a family member's feet to the fire just like you would anyone else. And you have to be patient with them just like you would anyone else.
Some words to the wise. And speaking of words to the wise, John, before we wrap things up, someone in Deep Wealth Nation, they want to speak with you. They have a question. Perhaps they want you to take them to market. Where would be the best place online to find you?
Go to our website, nokomisadvisory.com, Nokomis advisory.com. There's a contact form. Fill it out. And if you put in that this came from the Deep Wealth podcast, I'll send you a complimentary copy of our book, Exit Risk Style, Grace and More Money, or any of the other books that I have, if you mentioned it.
Love it. Absolutely love that, John. And Deep Wealth Nation, why not have that conversation? See what's there. Go through John's books. Be the better for that. And that said, John, it's official. Congratulations. This is a wrap. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. All the best.
So there you have it, Deep Wealth Nation. What did you think? So with all that said, and as we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Actually, it's more of a personal favor. Did you find this episode helpful? Have you found other episodes of the Deep Wealth Podcast empowering and a game changer for your journey? And if you said yes, and I really hope you did, I have a small but really meaningful way that you can actually help us out and keep these episodes coming to you. Are you ready for it? The dramatic pause. I'll just wait a moment. Drum roll, please. Subscribe. Please subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast on your favorite podcast channel. When you subscribe to the Deep Wealth Podcast, you're saving yourself time. Every episode automatically comes to you. And I want you to know that we meticulously craft every one of our episodes to have impactful strategies stories, expert insights that are designed to help you grow your profits, increase the value of your business, and yes, even optimize your post exit life and your life right now, whatever you want that to look like. And every time you subscribe and a fellow entrepreneur subscribes, it's a testament to how together, yes, we are changing the social fabric of society. One business owner at a time, one liquidity event at a time. So don't let the momentum stop here. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast channel. You'll never miss an episode. You'll be the first to hear from the top industry leaders, the innovators, the disruptors that are really changing and shaping the business world. And maybe you're commuting, maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're taking a well-deserved break that we spoke all about on this episode. The Deep Wealth Podcast, it's your reliable source for the next big idea that could literally revolutionize your business. So once again, please hit that subscribe button, stay connected, inspired, and ahead of the curve. And again, your next big breakthrough moment, it might just be one episode away. Maybe it was even this episode. So all that said, thank you so much for listening. And remember, your wealth isn't just about the money in the bank. It's about the depth of your journey and the impact that you're creating. So let's continue this journey together. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And as we love to say here at Deep Wealth, may you continue to thrive and prosper while you remain healthy and safe. Thank you so much. God bless.